the web of life.
Let me try from the first to indicate the point that we're aiming at. The point is this, that human consciousness is at the same time as being a form of awareness and sensitivity and understanding, it's also a form of ignorance.
I don't want someone to come, I guess from my perspective, I don't want someone to come fix me. I don't want you to solve my problems for me. I don't want you to tell me your opinion. Like, I would want someone to have me think more for myself. What does that mean? What does that look like for you? You just said that earlier. Like, what does that look like for you? Tell me more. The statement of how can I show up for you? It's so important that you just feel more like, okay, this is going to be hard, but I'm with a life coach, and even today we were talking about some things, and she's like, well, she just asks simple questions, but then they're not. Like, how is that serving you? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not serving me at all. She's like, okay then, so you're making the choice to enable the behavior or allow the behavior or be a part of that, that essence of that other, say if you're just having an exchange with another person, and something that came up, and she called it the transfer of energy, and I said to her, tell me more about that. And I kind of knew what she meant, but I just really wanted to know, and I love what she said. She's like, well, I'm not here to fix anybody. Everyone is on their own journey, their own path of their own self-work. And so, but when you see somebody that you know and well enough, or not, you see that they're going through something or they're struggling. It's usually what a person wants, I think their first initial reaction is like, what can I do to fix it? Can I just like put a Band-Aid on it? Or it's almost like they don't really know how to navigate asking, how can I show up for you? Or validating, I see that you're going through something, you got this. Like, sort of empowering them to work it out. When you offer someone an opinion, I think at times there can be, you might put that judgment on yourself. Well, that person just gave me their opinion, they should think I should do this. And then you start judging yourself, for me. And I was like, well, they don't even know what the issue is. They don't know what the problem is. They don't even know what I'm going through. They haven't asked. So they've bypassed all of those feelings when you want to connect with somebody, because you do want to help them. Like, I get it. The opinion of somebody is like, I want to help them, but ask them how they want to be helped. So a lot of the essence of today was, how can I show up for you? May I add value to that? Or would you like to hear my perspective? Knowing it's a safe place, knowing that whatever I'm saying, because I had said something to her, and she responded, and she said, I'm saying that without judgment, and I 100% knew that, but I love that she reminded me that her response was not judgmental. It was just, it was spot on, and it was accurate. Was I ready to hear it in that moment? Not 100% ready, but then when she said that, I was like, okay, I feel more at ease. So there are so many little moments I had with her today that it would probably be another hour podcast. But so I'll even come back to the transfer of energy. Is that something that you know of? Are you aware of? I mean, like right now we have a transfer of energy with each other. Like we are, like in a positive way, in a nourishing way, in a fun, magical way. So does that make sense to you, like the transfer of energy that we have going on, like even in this room?
You had me fascinated at a dichotomy that I never really think about too much, which is the responsibility of a teacher or a coach, but also the responsibility of a student. How can you expect knowledge without first understanding inwardly what it is you want to know? So I wanted to point that out, and I think one of the brilliant things that you said, and the images you put in my mind, was as a Montessori student, or teacher, excuse me. Were you a Montessori student?
Never.
Yeah, I could tell. As a Montessori teacher, you were sitting at eye level with your kids. Fuck, like, yeah. If you look at another classroom, it looks like prison cells.
Yeah.
It looks like a dictator standing before you and you can wait to go to the bathroom.
That's right.
But a free, open classroom where the curriculum is learn, how to educate. There are practical skills outside of the academia that are actually being applied. And I think that's brilliant. I think that's beautiful. So you kind of sent me into orbit thinking about that, and I just wanted to respond to that. And I want to think about that more, about that relationship between the teacher and the student, and maybe the best way of actually going about forming those relationships and who to seek it from. Because sometimes the best teacher isn't the one who knows the answers, but it's the one who has you ask the same questions to get to the revelations that you needed to. So interesting. You really spawned something. So I wanted to respond to that. And then you brought up, this transfer of energy. Elaborate. I mean, I have ideas of what you mean by that, but I'd be curious when you spoke with your coach this morning. You were talking about a transfer of energy.
Yeah, we were, and some of the things her and I were just talking about, and even the discussion I was having with her was a transfer of energy, chosen transfer of energy as well. Like, we wanted to transfer that energy to one another, and then the other there's various different types, and she brought up an example of a transfer of energy of recognizing somebody was going through something that she knew pretty well. And she basically was reiterating, it's not for me to fix their feelings. It's not for me to fix that and make them feel the things that they're supposed to feel. What a person generally needs in that moment is a quick connection, in the sense of, I see you, it seems that you are struggling, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm here for you, I'm going to give you the space to do what you need to do for you. And that's so much respect there. It's also like, oh, you saw me, I'm not ready to, I'm the kind of person where I know for me, I need my space to reflect, and because she's so good at what she does anyway. And this is something that she knows very personally, it's not even just a client. So it's so many different types of transfers of energy, and being aware of that energy, and just knowing she validated that person and let that person know, I see you, I hear you. And when so many of us are, again, trying to, not, maybe that's generalizing, but trying to fix it. I'm going to fix you, I'm going to put a Band-Aid on it, I'm going to make it better, and then you're going to go away. And then I'm going to give you my opinion on it as well. For me, that's uncomfortable. That's like, it's such a learnable moment. And as learning to be a coach and being coached, you are asked those hard questions. You are, that put it, when she shared with me another example, how she was able to navigate it with somebody else that she knew, and she was able to connect with them quickly.
What was she specifically unveiling to you about this energy transfer, and was there a specific moment in your life that spawned that conversation that you were telling her about?
Yeah. Well, it's probably, I'm pretty vulnerable and open, but maybe not with this particular thing that I can talk about right now.
Just answer the way you feel comfortable answering.
Okay, so I appreciate that. So one of my values, of many, one of my strong values is having that reciprocation when you're in a friendship and you are giving and offering energy to this person, and they come to you because they need to, they want to, they want to talk, whatever it is, like whatever they want to come to you with, and then you put that energy into that. And then I was saying, I feel depleted from this particular exchange. And I said to her, I was like, I kind of came up with this term called a mutual exchange of energy, which is something I've written down many times. And as far as I know, I don't stand this. I think that's my term. She liked it, but there at some level, it's not always going to be mutual. It's not always going to be reciprocated. For the most part, it should be, right? So there is that transfer of energy and being aware of that. So if I'm putting energy into somebody, and that's not coming back to me, then it's depleting me. So it's not a mutual exchange. It's not reciprocated, and it's certainly not like a fair transfer when it happens over and over again. So that's kind of what we were talking about, is like, well, I'm not feeling it's a good reciprocation on their part. So it's up to me to set up that boundary and say, I can really only offer you this, or maybe offer you nothing, because that energy is so important to fill within yourself in a way that in the way you want to fulfill it. And that could be like what we're doing now, and sending a personal reflection, sending, like, if you see a quote or an affirmation that reminds you of somebody, you're like, you need to hear this. And say you do that 10 times to a person, the person doesn't respond, and maybe you hold space for them. They're obviously going through it, but maybe not continuously send that energy to them because they don't have the capacity to reciprocate. So that's kind of the conversation, the essence of what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm. What did she say specifically that you should do in a circumstance like that? Where did you guys get?
I don't know that it was more this knowing your boundaries and what you want to put your energy into. And then I added with her, or maybe even I'm trying to remember if I added this with her or wrote it down myself, but I think I did share with her. And what I do share with others is, if somebody doesn't have the capacity, if someone's not where if someone can't meet you where you're at and they don't have the capacity, though we keep putting energy into that, it is your choice to not enable that any longer. So you're almost putting yourself in actually she did say this, you're almost putting yourself in a victim, like sabotaging type of response. So we all have our saboteurs, and perhaps putting yourself in that victim one is, well, in some ways it's pleasing, but then yet you're a victim at the same time. So to answer your question, it's like, if someone can't meet you there and they don't have the capacity, you do not need to put that energy into that.
Yeah, I was nodding my head off.
Yes, you were.
For those listening. If we are engaging with somebody and we get to a place where we feel like they are consuming our energy away and there is no reciprocity in the situation, first you ask yourself, why do I feel compelled to give energy here? Where is this going? What are the means that I'm providing? What are the outcomes I'm looking for? That in and of itself will be revelatory, because it's probably not what you think you were doing or setting out to do. There's probably a motive in there that is disguised, and you were disguising it for yourself. Other thing I want to point out on that is you are never a victim to anybody other than yourself. And this is what you were saying. This is not a new train of thought. This is exactly what you were saying. Monitoring how much energy you have when your day begins or when you're interacting with others, right? It can be something personal to you when you're alone, or something you monitor when you're with somebody else. We've mentioned in the past there are people who charge us up, but ideas steal energy too, right? So running inventory in your own head about your actual energy levels will teach you how many things you're assigning value to, how many things you're giving overimportance to. And through that, you say, okay, maybe I have hyper importance on making $1 million this year. right? I want to make $1 million this year. If you think about that over and over and over again, it's going to steal your energy away and distract you from the goal of attainment. Same goes for a relationship with a human being. If there's somewhere you want to go, we need to get here. We need to be on this level. We need to be engaging this way. This is what our relationship should look like. The more importance you give to that image, the more it takes you away from the actual relationship itself. There's a beautiful sentiment that I heard recently, which was the second you let go of the things you love, the more present your love becomes. Wow. The energy all comes back to you the second you let go, because it's always there. It's all here. It's all there. Don't assign energy outwardly. Keep it within you and be wary of where it's going and how you're using it. So I don't know if that was necessarily linear, but I totally agree with the need for being sovereign with the way you channel and transact with others.
That was exactly, as I read it here. So yes, exactly. And the more you do put your energy where you want to put it, it's for me, it's a natural flow. Like today, the energy is that what I did this morning with journaling and doing my manifestation challenge through this work I'm doing, and then seeing her doing this with you, and then doing my mastermind group later. It is a beautiful natural flow of energy, and it's an energy that I chosen today to put it into.
Right, that reminds me, because when I really started nodding is when you said the choice. The choice, because you can't escape the transaction of energy, but you get to choose which pendulums you want to ride. Is this one serving me? Is this one aligned with my direction?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Yes. I never thought about riding a pendulum. Tell me more about that.
That is not mine at all.
Okay.
That is Vadim Zealand. He has a book called Reality Transurfing. If I were to find a baby, and just all alone, I would take that baby. I would ask someone else to raise it, but I would make that person promise me that it gives that baby 2 books. One is the Kybalion.
Yeah.
The other is Reality Transurfing. And what that does is it says, good morning. You are a human being. This is the world you live in. This is how it works, and this is how you navigate it. Go play.
I love it.
So, pendulums is an interesting one. That's the probably first chapter. These books always start with the universe is mental, right? Mentalism, thoughts are real. That's what it is. It's all a big thought. It gets into a description of the world that we live in, and then it shows and reveals patterns and how to navigate them. I would say Kybalion can be a little esoteric. After reading it 200 times, you'll start to take things away because you'll apply it to your daily life. But Reality Transurfing will give you things in the spot as you're reading it, where you're like, fuck me. I've been doing this all along. Like, I've got it all wrong. And it helps you look at the world with a fresh pair of eyes. So I am very outspoken about how important that book is.
So when you talk about transurfing, and just now you have a fuck me moment, do you have one? Like, that just came to your mind when you said that?
I typically don't like to talk about my fuck me moments.
Okay. You don't have to talk about anything you want to talk about.
No, I'm kidding. I am open about these things. Nothing came to my mind.
Okay.
It's just generally speaking. It was a revelation. It was, thank you so much for giving me that. Now I can really operate. Those 2 books, I feel like I can go play. Yeah.
You have been playing.
Well, again, they came to me at such a perfect point in life.
You have found these tools to help you navigate what you're going through right now. And that is so crucial, that there are so many tools out there, and your toolbox is exactly, or your tool belt, however you want to visualize it, or do that. You put those tools in there that work for you now, and 100%, like podcasts, journaling, listening to books, you're educating yourself in a way that's meaningful and with intention. Again, like I love the word intention. So the word toolbox, tools, it's pretty important that you're doing that. And this is essentially what we're doing as a tool for you, for both of us, to navigate where we are in this life of like holistic being and being human and human experience, as written on the podcast itself. So I think I view this as one of my tools.
Totally. It's an interesting transaction as well. We were talking about like energy transactions. The outpouring of information is both information that I've been contemplating, and equally hearing myself talk freely, and then retroactively going and listening and saying, I don't even know where that came from. What is trying to come out of me right now? And that is giving me a whole new level of insight that I never had before. So I don't think anyone should take what I say and apply it to their lives. I don't think it would, I could make them do that even if I wanted to. I think there's a meritocracy of information, and when we are in a place where it applies to our lives, it spurs us on this like new lifeline, on this new journey. And it can come from someone you think is articulate, it can come from someone you think is wise, but it can also come from someone else. You know, it's these moments of inspiration can come from anywhere. Potential tangent there, but
no,
I'm thinking as I talk, which is the thing, right? That's what I'm talking about, right? Like, I don't have a script for anything I want to say, and I love that. I love that. And how often do you get to sit down with someone and say, okay, we're blocking this time, and we're going to devote it to a real conversation where we figure things out, we learn about each other, and we learn about ourselves.
Oh no, this is a fucking tool.
Yeah.
And it's like, blows my mind. And you said it perfectly. We're not scripting anything. We kind of have some ideas of what we want to talk about, or even if we plan on Thursday what we want to talk about today. It's almost like, well, wait, I did want to talk about that, but this is what's come up for me today. There's so much value in what you just said, that when you're thinking out loud, you're like, and then you re-listen to yourself, and you're, oh no, for sure. Like I write down things that you say, and I was like, where did that come from? That's really cool. And I said, I've actually asked you, did you just make that up? And you're like, yeah, I kind of just made that up. But that's what's so powerful about having these open conversations and provoking thinking. And so what you said is like, and all the information that we're sharing right now is where we're at. And that's what we're sharing, and from our experiences. And also take it for what it is. And the people I sent the podcast out to, I said, I was like, embrace the raw, real roughness of what we're talking about, without judgment. Just that's sort of my staple of what I was saying, is like, just be open-minded and listen, or not. Take it for what it is.
Yeah.
So
I think that like my goal every time we sit down to talk is to get into a place where we are in a state of flow. And the reason for that is because I have come to a place where I believe truthfully that when things need to be brought into the world, into like this greater collective consciousness, they will. The most common example of that is when you had an idea for an invention, you didn't act on it, but then a week later you see someone invented it, right? So I do believe there are ideas that are coming into the world, and you can be a conduit for that information, or someone else will, right? Now, by being in a state of flow, you're like opening up your receptors to this alternative space, and then bringing it into realization. You are realizing that, right? And I think if we are devoted to achieving a state of flow, that stuff will come through us into our conversation, And it'll be stuff that will be relevant to somebody who's listening because the world at that time needed that conversation, that information to spark some inspiration. So I don't necessarily care if we have a successful podcast, but if we say stuff from that alternative space and put it in people's ears who are listening, even if it's 4 people, hopefully they go on to inspire something giant. But then when you try and look at the breadcrumbs of the different things that led to those different inspirations, you realize that everything's connected. So nothing's more important than anything else.
I have nothing more to say on that. That's perfect.
Okay, next thing. What else do you want to get into?
You had given me an example. You were listening, you just had finished an audiobook, and then you're about to start another one. But before you start another one, you had this moment. Is that relevant?
You asked me about my mystical.
Yes.
The mystical side of me.
The mystical side of you.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your mystical side.
The first episode we released, that was super private to me for a long time. And I had always been conflicted about who to share that to, where to share it, if I'm worthy of sharing that. A lot of literature out there will say it's personal. So I felt very conflicted. But then I came to a conclusion on it where, and I'll kind of work backwards, but I came to a conclusion on it that I do want to share. And I have to promise myself that I don't share these things for any power for me, right? And the reason I want to share it is because if I was going through these experiences and I heard somebody else have these experiences, I would feel, and I wouldn't feel like I'm losing my mind. And B, by talking about them, they have purpose. By not keeping them to myself, they have purpose that won't just serve me, but they could potentially serve other people. So I just have to keep my ego in check about it. I'm not some special guy. I really don't believe I am for having these moments. But I do think if I talk about certain mystical experiences, it'll help people tap into their own. That's happened to me. I've had moments that other people talk about their realizations, and that's kind of expanded what I think is possible. So ultimately, if there's one thing I can do, it's I want people to know, like, there is something bigger. It's real. Wake up, right? Like, wake up. It's real. And there's more. And if you can believe that, and can believe that you have that inside of you equally, you will get somewhere. So I know that's a little bit of a annoying manifesto, but the moment that we were talking about was, we were talking about like being conflicted about if I want to share it or not. And an interesting moment happened. So I was reading a book that was a relatively occult, esoteric book. Okay. And I had just finished listening to it. And this was like late at night. I was laying in bed. I took my headphones off. And the whole thing was saying, don't talk about these things, right? Don't share about them. And equally, I think anything can be bastardized and obstructed, right? So, same way, like, church has gone left and right, same way religion has gone left and right, academia has gone left and right. Why do I believe everything I'm listening to, even if it is someone that I revere? Mm-hmm. So I ask myself, I've mentioned the light, I've talked about this, I ask myself if it's something that I should do. Honestly, truly honestly, is this something I should share and talk more about and open up about? And the light came on, right? So I know for a fact that it's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna necessarily always talk about it, but if you ask me questions about it, I will be open about it. And what's interesting as a check and balance is the next book on my playlist was a book by Saint Germain, who is a really interesting, worthy Google for anybody.
Vampire.
Yeah. But the book,
Obsessions.
the book is called The Most Holy Sophia. And it opens up with someone who's in a higher world, but writing a note to someone who's back on earth, who is also in this spiritual world. And the note is almost a repentance for having manipulated the power that came from mystical and spiritual knowledge while on earth, and saying, now I'm humiliated up here. I am in shackles. I am essentially like getting pissed on by the higher powers. And I don't not care if I believe in this stuff or not. Like I think like the message itself says, use your powers, help other people find out what their powers are, but don't use them in a way where it's only serving you, because what comes, like, you will suffer consequences. And I don't really, again, care if the picture is what it looks like. What I recognize is balancing forces, right? And trying to steal power, you lose it all.
Well, I appreciate, first of all, at the beginning you were saying, do I share or don't I share? I'm thankful that you're sharing. And that you had even said to me, the more we talk about this, that I guess I've encouraged you to bring out that spiritual side in you as well. And I appreciate that you are sharing with us, because this is you're benefiting, if you want to use the word benefit, benefiting us, benefiting the world by sharing, even if it's for people. So I love that you are willing and open and vulnerable enough to share. And you are doing the checks and balances. You're, perhaps I would even be more aware for myself to do more checks and balances, because I do focus on certain things that I read, but I do love vampires. So you need to have like your little bit of my own mystical world and a good fun check and balance. But no, that's awesome that you are listening to like those types of varieties of books, and you will bring them to I would like you to bring them to the podcast to share with us. I'm learning from this, and the books that you read and what you've taken from them. So please keep sharing, because I know I for sure appreciate it. There's just so much out there to learn and to know, and I just want to soak it all in. It just opens up my mind, and that's the thing, is like our flow and channeling it and just opening up the receptors on a neurological level, for sure. It's like it's blowing my mind, this the amount of information out there that we have access to.
Yeah, thank you. It's blowing my mind too. Truthfully, I would say that since we started talking, synchronicities or moments like that have been accelerating for sure. So I will tread carefully, but I will say the necessary hump for me was in talking about these things, making sure my ego's in check.
Yeah.
Because it's really not, again, I want to say this like 100 times, I'm not a special person. Like, there are lots of people who have moments there are lots of people who have these experiences. And I'm also not a teacher. Let's go back to a synchronicity that I think is actually really important. Okay, cool. Now that we're bringing this up. Mm-hmm. On our episode 1, we were talking about Matisse paintings, right? Yep. Matisse paintings. And I showed you the one on my arm, which was dance, and then you described one that you said was Dancing with Stars.
That's right.
We had both gone and looked up what that painting was, and it's actually a painting called Icarus.
Icarus, yeah.
And Icarus is essentially a parable about flying too close to the sun, right? And I'll get into a brief description if it's worth it.
I had you describe it to me even more so on a philosophical level. So yes.
I have trouble remembering the names of like Greek characters, because they're like, it starts with a D. dad and son are in prison, and the simple thing that gets the point across is father and son are in prison. The father was a great sculptor, so he constructed these wings for him and his son out of wax and feathers so that they can fly out of the prison walls, right? And as the father and the son fly up over the walls of the prison, the son starts to realize that, holy shit, like not only are we not in prison anymore, but we can keep going, like we can go see what's out there, right? So he flies higher and higher, even though he knew that the wings weren't strong enough. Flies higher and higher, the wax melts essentially off of the wings, and he comes falling down from the stars to his death. And that's what the painting is, it's his descent. And that is such a funny thing for you to have said after the first time I talk about spiritual powers, because it's exactly that. Don't fly too close to the sun. Put yourself in check, because if there is something bigger, you don't necessarily have that information with you, and be cautious of how you talk about it, who you're talking about it with, because you really don't know shit, my friend. And I believe that. Now, other funny thing is, that my Matisse painting on my arm, the dance, there were actually 2 renditions of it. So there was dance 1, dance 2. One is, looks like a 5-year-old painted it. It's much more free and loose. Mm-hmm. The other one's more anatomically correct, right? And stronger and more saturated. And it's almost like Matisse was trying to expose this like dichotomy of power and purity, right? And that's funny. Like, it's just almost whimsical that came out of the conversation we had.
Wow, there's another one. Yeah. And when I painted it, I wasn't even completely aware of the meaning of it. Like, I thought he was dancing in the stars, but really he was falling to his death. Because I guess you could, with that story, it makes sense that when you described it to me, we both looked it up. But looking the portion that I painted, it looks like he is dancing with the stars and not necessarily falling to his death as he looks up at the stars. But no, you're right. That's a reminder of the ego and the checks and balances of the information we learn. And one of my good friends in the summer, we were talking about some things, and I think I definitely was going into coaching mode. And she literally was like, in such a respectful way, it made me more aware. I only know what I know, and I have so much more to learn, and that's the journey of my life. And she said, I really don't want you to coach me right now. And I was like, shit, I'm coaching you. And I thank you. Like, she put me in my place, and she was very kind about it. She's like, I love what you want to say. Which like and that's what it showed. That's what I learned. I was like, okay, you're right. You're absolutely right. So how can I show up for you right now?
Right. That's the spawn of that question.
That was the spawn of that.
Yeah.
Yes. And from my experience, that moment, one day when she listens to this, she'll remember that. But it definitely checked me. And I was like, of course, like, my ego was hurt a little bit, and I was like, but I have this information to offer you, and I was like, no, if it was me, I'd be like, I don't want you to coach me right now. How can I show up for you?
But it's like that pain you felt in your ego was like a little micro death that made room for this wisdom that you have now, thanks to your friend.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a little micro death.
Yeah.
Because of the work we've done, and where I'm like, I'm not attaching myself to that. It's like, okay, learnable moment. And I would say, because I'm so comfortable after going through my own journey, and still do, knowing who I am, and knowing you have to laugh at yourself when you fuck up, when you fall down. You got to get back. Like, resilience is such a key to this, and I'm still working on my resilience. I'm still working on self-belief. But the more comfortable I know who I am, and really proud of her and love this person that I'm, being in love with her and falling in love with her, you are more comfortable in these situations. And people, they read that transfer of energy. My energy, they're just, it's there. Like, your energy is there, where people feel comfortable, like you've had your sister come to you, and I've had, my sister come to me, it's a safe space for the most part. People can open up. So yeah, maybe I'm not trying to draw information out of you, but knowing that like, oh, I can talk about spirituality in a way that's to make it comfortable and be comfortable with that.
Yeah, well, thank you for being someone that I can feel comfortable with. Last week when we regrouped, one of the things that you brought up was the fact that we are headed into a new year. And you had a semantic shift between New Year's resolutions, and you called them revolutions?
I think I call them, I could be revolution or revelations.
Okay.
Either one sort of came, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't necessarily know if I have any, but I'd love to hear what you were thinking about when you devised that.
When that word came to me, and I now that we're first week into December, and I started my manifestation challenge, it's a conversation I want to come back to in the sense of like, what are some of my revelations and not resolutions, but revelations. Resolutions can be, I think, put pressure on people. They could put pressure on people to fulfill these requirements for next year. But for me, I want to take this month to really reflect on celebrate all the things that I've accomplished this year. I know the word accomplishment comes in, but how I've manifested, not thinking I was actually manifesting, when really I'm like, oh, I was manifesting, and now these manifestations have come for me, and the little ones, and then the major ones. So the revelations are that anything is fucking possible. Whatever you really truly want, desire, but you have to know why you want that. Why you desire this. You can say, I want that G-Wagon. Why do I want that G-Wagon? Why do I want this podcast? That's the important thing, is the if you want to use the word, like with the energy, the root of that energy into that, what are the things that I want and what I desire. So when I ask people that, it's a hard question to answer. And you don't have to answer it right away, but it's like a thought in your mind to think to yourself, yeah, what is it that I do want for myself to bring purpose to, to feel when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, yes, even if you're not at a yes, there are yeses to come, there are moments to come that will, make that day, in a sense, not even a little win, but wins. Like these are the wins along the day.
So it sounds like, right, you want to take a moment to express true gratitude for how things have come together over the last year, which I think is a great, probably the most important perpetual starting point for anything good and new and positive. And you also mentioned anything's possible. Okay, well, let's dig in there. So maybe in previous years you had some New Year's resolutions to make. Now that you have this seed that's been planted in terms of anything is possible, what the fuck does that person wish for? I must ask.
Yeah.
What intention does that person set for themselves in a new year?
And when you ask that question, you're asking like in general.
I'm asking you.
You're asking me directly. Intention for me is, well, to actually on a daily basis and a moment basis is to live with my intentions, to live with meaning, to navigate my world in such a meaningful, intentional way. And the word connection comes to me now as well. It's staying within my power of my values. And sometimes those will be off balance. The bringing the harmony back into those, and that's okay. But really knowing my values and knowing that when I say anything is possible, everything evolves. you're expanding all the time. So the mindset is anything is possible. What are your dreams? Dream them. Let the imagination just go. Do not limit yourself to what someone says you can and can't do, or what you believe you can and can't do. You know, is it a can't or a won't? Are you choosing not to do it, or you really truly can't? It's usually you're choosing not to do it. So be in that power of allowing whatever's to come for you, because it's there, it's orbiting you, ready. The universe is giving you these opportunities, and you can open that door, or you can leave that door shut. So why not open the door? See what's on the other side of that, and it may not be meant for you, and that's okay. At least you opened that door. You gave it a try. So this coming year, from just even these last few weeks of all the alignment, that's it. I guess we have to believe before it comes to us. So truly, I was believing. I have made that mind switch in my brain. That mindset is like, just believe. To receive, not receive and then believe. It's like, okay, I am, and I'm worthy of receiving. I'm worthy of receiving this abundance that's coming for me, that's already there. Being grateful for the current abundance and the abundance that's come, ready to come, because I'm worthy. I deserve that. I deserve the wants and the desires. I might not even know all my wants and my desires, but I know that it's possible to get them. And this was one of mine, what we're doing now. And it's just blown my mind, where I'm on, like, can I just say cloud nine, whatever you want to say. It's just like, wow, this is something we've done in so many realms of, like, you know, the word brave comes up. Like, my friends who are listening, like, that's so brave of you. I'm so proud of you. Like, this is because they know me well enough to say those things and how courageous it was. And I can't wait to hear the next one. Knowing that is just like, that's the gift to going into this new season. Even if something doesn't come that I want to come, it's just knowing, believe, okay, well, that's not meant for me. It's not meant for me. Maybe down the line it's meant for me, but it's not meant for me now. So what is meant for me? And so discovering and creating what is meant for me. There can be like a difference between the creation and the the discovery. I actually really appreciate both words. So I do hope I was able to answer that question and give you some context.
Yeah, totally gave me context. What I personally gather from that is, A, you're grateful for having a starting place. B, really what it is that you're setting out for are principles that you can use to operate this world the way that you see fit. Early on there, you mentioned how you want to live in accordance with your values. What are your values?
If I had my journal in front of me, I would say, like, the first quite a few pages are values. And I will, if a word comes for me, I write it down and on my list of values. And some of them, sometimes I write that word a couple times. And I either, because I'm just continuously on my list, and so one of the words, like, it's like basically like your authentic code of these words. So the code is, or the programming is, or like there's that alignment of certain words. And to your question, connection is one of the first words that came to mind when you asked me that question. And the word connection can absolutely be malleable. It can be what resonates for me in this time. What I thought of connection a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, still remains. But then I feel like it's actually been branched out, where I find that the word connection it has to be deep. It has to be a soul connection for me. Authenticity is soul connection of knowing who I am. So my authenticity is within me first, and knowing who I am as a human being, and how I show up for myself and how I show up for others. So within connection, I feel like when I see that word, like little other, like, branches come out, and it's friendship, it's relationships, it's connection to the self for sure, and it's authenticity, being authentic. So yeah, I would say, and I love the word feeling. Well, we used reciprocity earlier, so reciprocation is pretty important for me in the values. I do find over time that certain things were like, I have to operate and navigate under these principles with these values, as is how strongly I feel, and I still do. However, I would say I've expanded from that, and that mentality, that mindset. I've also expanded the actual values itself. So perhaps maybe reciprocity was a core of mine a couple of years ago. I don't know that I'm so attached to that now, because the more I feel whole on my own, within my own self, meaning. So I'm a little bit more relaxed when it comes to that. Is that right? Like I can relax into that. But then like sometimes this word protection comes to me, or I really want to feel protected in my relationships, in my friendships, like that level of protection and loyalty. Like loyalty is a really big one for me. And it could be my lioness Leo side of me, but it's being loyal. And so when people perhaps compromise my loyalty, I may not bounce back as easily, as I did, as I will one day. I feel like loyalty will still remain with me, but I won't be as affected if someone is not as loyal as I am. So I do believe that values should expand as we grow and change. Though those core values are what are my principles, is what I live by. It just makes me feel, I don't know, I'm so connected to who I am, which is important for me.
There's an inherent open-mindedness in the fact that you are willing to continuously ask yourself the things that you value. For example, lowering the importance of reciprocity. And it's interesting how the second you went inward on your relationship with yourself as opposed to outward relationships, you lost the need for it. And that's kind of the sentiment of transmuting something. Something you've said in the past, on one of the last episodes, was you do long for a sense of security. Do you think that there's an avenue for you in looking inward for a sense of security that might give you some release in your outward relationships?
That is definitely part of my journey right now and what does that security look like for me, right? And I would say on not such a deep level, but one sense of security is having freedom, and within that freedom is at some level financial freedom for my own adventures and my own life. And that could be something you manifest, and that's a whole nother, that's another tangent to go on. But yeah, security, protection is something I write down a lot, and I'm digging into why. And I'm not sure I can actually answer that right now, but it's definitely that those words are orbiting me. It's that physical protection, it's that mental protection of feeling that safety. And the question, I guess, is, it's like, what is it that's not, why am I not feeling safe? Why am I not feeling protected? And that's something I'm digging into. So yes, there is that inward reflection of why. That's important for me to work through. If that's helpful.
It doesn't have to be helpful.
I want it to be helpful. Or at least answer a little bit of the question. Or
you totally answered the question. And there are so many things that I work on, but a lot, and so I don't feel like, I don't want it to seem like I think I'm some type of professor. I think a lot of my flaws just aren't conscious right now, right? So that's why I'm not sitting here and telling you about all my mistakes. It's like I just don't know them right now, And that's the only reason I'm like trying to contribute to this security thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have like a myriad of my own. I just don't necessarily know what they are. So call me out if you, if you think of them. But
No, but this is what I appreciate about this kind of conversation is, you know, making me even realize and look inward more so as to whatever the attachment is to those words, because they are words. And when you look at a word, like the word connection, when I write it down or when I think about it, like what kind of feeling does that give you? What type of, when I think about protection, what does that mean for me and what does that look like, and also what kind of feeling do I get? But yeah, no, I'm on. It's when you do release and surrender, it's such, it does open up massively of like what really should be there to that best serves you. What best serves me, what best serves you.
Yielding, the sound of the word surrendering and yielding, it doesn't seem like a loss to me. To me, the image is like the opening up of like a lotus flower. That's the image that comes to my mind. Yielding, allowing. Truly. And I think in many ways that is what you came here to learn. Security, right? That you have infinite, abundant security.
Infinite, abundant.
Everything. Right. It's true.
Everything.
Right. That's why fundamentally I don't believe in scarcity. I don't believe in competition. I don't believe in competition. This one's very contentious. I'm a sales guy, and I used to go into meetings and people would be like, I'm hyper competitive, I'm a numbers driven person. I'm like, I literally don't believe in that. I don't want to be you. That's not how it works.
And part of, like Montessori, bringing Montessori back into this, there's no competition. You move at your own pace. The child is the leader of themselves. Like,
God, that's beautiful.
It's like, well, mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And part of my own coaching for kids, the mindset is only compare. If you want to compare, you look at inside. Like, where was I yesterday? Where am I in this moment? Like, compare yourself to yourself and your own growth and celebrate and honor that. And part of, like, when I was coaching rugby for little girls, like the little girl groups that I coached, you know, they're so funny. I was the coach that did not keep track of how many tries were going on. And they were like, Coach Ashley, what's the score? I was like, doesn't matter what the score is. Go out there and play your little butts off. Like, enjoy it, have fun, tackle hard, and do your best in this moment. And they knew never to ask me what the score was. I wasn't keeping track.
I believe you play the game as good as you can play it, and whether you win or lose, you'll know deep down if there's a deficiency in the way you performed by the amount of effort you put into something. That is it. So, I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
I wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly. Too much pressure on, like, that last kick to make that conversion for football, for rugby, for whatever. And so much comes down to that last basket where it has to be a three-pointer. And then you forget about the entire game. It's like that one moment of, like, that dude made the three-pointer, she made it, you know, she made the conversion.
Yeah.
Then they won because of that. No.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I mean, that 2 points makes the difference 100%. But what about the entire game up into that?
Yeah.
We forget about the journey and the process in the meantime. It's not necessarily about the win or the lose, 100%. But, like, I appreciate that they've tried hard, and perhaps because of how well they played, and they didn't win. So let's think about how well you played and you showed up.
I have an interesting kind of question. When we started the conversation, we were talking about the relationship, the duty and responsibility between teachers and students. You have been a Montessori teacher. You were a rugby coach. Now you are, there's 3 other things. So you're doing embodiment for women. You're doing wisdom coaching for kids. And you are a brilliant moderator of a fantastic, renowned podcast.
Just saying. Like that plug.
Our first conversation was centered around early adolescent experiences, one of which being overcoming this concept of confirmation that was given to you through like the indoctrination of a religion you were born into. Immediately after that, when you were a kid, were there any teachers or coaches that appeared into your life, into your world, that made you want to emulate that archetype of the coach, the teacher, the person that's going to help people on their genuine, authentic path?
So more the adolescent age, not necessarily older, like later in life. I would almost say, not really, no. That's a powerful question. No one comes to mind whereas I was impacted by them thinking, that's what I want to be and emulate. In fact, I think it was the opposite. As in, not really bonding with teachers or coaches because of the way and the fashion they did that. I never really thought about this. I didn't feel good about it. Like, it just didn't feel right. It felt uncomfortable. It's like, they're not very encouraging. Aren't they supposed to be encouraging? They're a teacher. They're supposed to be teaching me. That coach, I mean, I still continue to go to school. I still continue to play sports. I mean, along the way, maybe a couple people stand out a little. Not saying to stand out, but someone that just like, okay, she was a good cheerleading coach when I was a cheerleader. And she did it because nobody else would do it. And she was a parent. Sorry, she was a parent of a friend, and she also worked at the school. I didn't think she was okay at coaching us. She let us do what we wanted. So yeah, no, I think that if anything, it was more like I want to be a really good teacher because kids need that. I want to be a really good, not some saying I'm like the best or good. Like it's like, wait, if I'm going to be impactful on people, how can I actually step into that role and be a facilitator for kids? Because I do love working with kids, and I want to be a really good coach for these girls. And like, I'm not out there to dictate and tell them and yell at them. I want them to be the best that they can be. So yeah, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, you're smiling as I'm talking to you about this. So does it resonate?
Totally. Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna be an asshole for a second.
Okay.
Because the easy layup you gave me is to bring this podcast home and to say, look at you now. You get to be that person for the person who doesn't have that in their life, which is the easy thing to say.
I wasn't trying to say that.
No, but there's a lot of truth in it, but I decided to look at it from another perspective as well. And I hope that's the case. And I do think that's the case. I think you're going to be such a good, I genuinely do think you are going to be such an amazing voice in people's lives. Truly.
So
I really do. In mine too.
Absolutely. Ditto.
I really mean it. But
Okay.
do you think you didn't find a teacher because you were always the archetype of a teacher? Do you think you didn't bring that in or welcome certain figures in your life because potentially deep down that's just who you are? You are someone who gathers knowledge gnostically for yourself through experience and disseminates it that way. And that's the way you learn. That's the way you're a student. I think from my perspective, it's potentially similar. I kept asking myself, why don't I have like one mentor? I've asked that in business. I have a really amazing family, and I think each of them have given me mentorship, older and younger, parents and siblings, in ways where they might not even recognize it. But in terms of one figure in my life, like I don't necessarily have one. And I actually got to a resolve where I don't think anyone knows how to be my mentor, because I've decided so steadfastly that it's whatever I need to learn is like coming out from the inside of me. Do you think the reason you didn't have a mentor is because of misfortune, or do you think it is because deep down you know that you are someone who extrapolates personal experiences and and has a deep-rooted desire to give that to humanity. That's just a question. I hope it doesn't take you away from the lovey feeling and realization you might have made.
Not at all. And that's, I don't think you're an asshole at all for asking that. Actually, it's quite inquisitive of like to think about it in that level. And I think a couple things came up for me. Maybe
you didn't want authority in your life because you realized that the priest was a fucking,
I was gonna say, there is that. There is this level of like, who are you to tell me what to do or how to think or how to be? I think there's a level of trust in there, not feeling that I trusted people because I wasn't feeling seen or heard or understood. My needs were not being met in the way that I wanted. I needed my needs to be met as a child in some ways, and that's something I'm unpacking right now. Lights out. So, yeah, maybe I was giving off an essence of like, she's got this. She doesn't necessarily need the guidance. She doesn't really need that, but children need that. I think trust comes to mind a little bit, like not feeling completely trustworthy of people, and so yeah, there does somebody, as I said earlier, like maybe not one person stands out, but along the way, I thought, okay, so I really appreciated that particular mom, my friend's mom, because I felt she was a pretty good listener, and so that was helpful. You know, like little spots, little times along the way, did I come across people. And like one counselor in high school, he had said a couple of things to me, and it was more like, and part of what I was actually going to say is, why we're here now is it's like this belief system in one another. I believe in you, you believe in me, and this is part of, I think, an essence of why we're doing what we're doing. So along the way, yes, I'm sure I met people that believed in me, but then I think when enough people don't believe in you, especially as a little kid, you kind of wonder, this cheerleading coach, she's coaching us. Does she really believe in us? Yes, she believes in us to a certain level. And she chose me to be on the team. Like we had to go through the whole tryouts. But then I think maybe I doubted myself. Maybe I didn't really believe I was worthy of somebody believing in me. Because I wasn't coming from where I needed it or wanted it to come from within my family or within close-knit friends at the time. That's a really good question. I feel like I might need to go do like a meditation on that, a deep meditation on what's the root of that question. No, it's pretty powerful. But I think I was able to, yes, in a sense, shift that and be like, well, I'm not going to, because people will go through life like, wow, that's the way I was treated, so I'm going to treat people that way. And I'm doing the opposite of that.
Yeah. That's for sure.
And maybe not even being completely aware of that, more awareness now that you've pointed that out.
Yeah. That's a contention in my mind as well. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of wisdom in trauma and looking back, but at the same time, it might not be as necessary as everyone makes it out to be, because if you can achieve some level of resolution and faith in yourself to navigate where you presently are, then you don't necessarily need to know what the seed looked like, what the quality of the seed was that spawned you to be motivated in one direction or another. I think like if you have a world outlook and you know who you are, then you can just be grateful for the path you're on and live in alignment with it.
But to make I think there is some awareness now of the way that I was brought up or treated or whatever, that's what the world was that I grew up in, and recognizing that's, and actually, I would even add to that, I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't have that experience. So having that, being grateful, instead of having resentment and being like, oh God, my life sucked, it's terrible, my needs weren't being met. So in some ways, I am rediscovering the needs that I need that I want for myself and to be fulfilled. But I also appreciate I went through that, and I can now offer the world a fresh new lens and not go down the rabbit hole of like of despair, the whole victim, mentality, and bringing that light and energy and kindness to the world, even though maybe it wasn't completely like that for me. Comparing myself to myself.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that message. Thank you.
Yes, of course. I mean it.